The stars were disappearing one by one. Nobody knew how to stop it. Commander Hyansik pressed his face against the cold metal wall of the observation deck, watching through the thick glass as another solar system went dark. The massive screens around him showed the same terrible sight that had been haunting his dreams for months. Where the Altarian colonies had been thriving just yesterday, now there was only empty space and floating debris. "Sir, we lost contact with the mining stations." "Two," said Captain Velthor, his voice shaking. The tall alien's blue skin had turned pale, something Hyansik had never seen before in all his years serving with the Hegemony fleet. Hyansik turned away from the window. As one of the few humans working for the galactic government, he felt like an outsider most days. Earth had been rejected for full membership 200 years ago. The other species said humans were too violent, too aggressive, too dangerous to be trusted with advanced technology. They let Earth have observer status and nothing more. Now, as he watched the galaxy's greatest civilizations crumble, Hyansik wondered if being violent might actually be useful. The enemy called themselves the Devourers. They never spoke to anyone. They just appeared from the darkness between stars, their ships looking like massive insects made of metal and flesh. They ate everything, not just food or resources, but entire planets, entire populations, entire star systems. They consumed matter and energy alike, growing stronger with each world they destroyed. "How many ships do we have left?" Hyansik asked, though he already knew the answer would be bad. 47 capital ships, maybe 200 smaller vessels, Captain Velthor replied. "The Devourers destroyed the 7th Fleet yesterday." Admiral Zethrin tried to negotiate with them first, as protocol requires. Hyansik closed his eyes. The Hegemony's rules were clear about first contact situations. Always try to communicate. Always offer peaceful solutions. Always give the enemy time to surrender. These rules had worked for thousands of years, keeping peace between hundreds of different species across the galaxy. But the Devourers did not want peace. They wanted lunch. "Sir, the energy shields are failing on the outer colonies," reported Lieutenant Cathara from her station. "The Devourers' bioweapons just absorb our defensive systems. Everything we shoot at them makes them stronger. The Hegemony's technology was built for civilized warfare. Their energy shields could stop plasma, cannons, and particle beams. Their ships were designed to disable enemies, not destroy them. Their weapons were calibrated to minimize casualties and protect civilian populations. All of this was completely useless against an enemy that saw every living thing as food." "The Council is meeting again," Captain Velthor said quietly. "They want to try sending another diplomatic mission." Hyansik almost laughed, but there was nothing funny about watching your friends die. How did the last diplomatic mission go? The Devourers ate the entire delegation. Ships, crew, everything. They sent back a message that was just ... screaming. The communication center started beeping with incoming signals. Hyansik walked over to the main console, hoping for good news, but expecting the worst. The holographic display showed a map of the galaxy with red dots marking Devourer attacks. There were so many red dots now that whole sectors looked like they were bleeding. "We're getting distress calls from everywhere, the communications," officer said. "The Centauri Republic is gone. The Vegan Trade Union is gone. The Peaceful Worlds Alliance? They lasted 3 hours." Stared at the map. Every red dot represented billions of lives lost. Every red dot was a civilization that had taken thousands of years to build, wiped out in days or hours. "We tried asking for help?" he asked. Captain Velthor looked confused. "Sir, we are the Hegemony. We are the ones who give help. Who could possibly help us?" Hyansik thought about Earth, his homeworld that the Hegemony had rejected. Earth with its messy history of wars and conflicts. Earth, where people still built weapons designed to kill as efficiently as possible. Earth, where the concept of acceptable losses was taught in military academies. "Send a distress signal," he ordered. "All frequencies, all languages. Include the restricted channels." The restricted channels reached the quarantine systems. The violent species we've been avoiding for centuries, They're not civilized like us. Captain, look around you. How is our civilization working out? The alien officer's expression changed as he understood. You want to contact the warrior species? The ones who never learned to fight properly? I want to contact the ones who never learned to fight nicely. High and Seek corrected. There's a difference. As the signal went out across the galaxy, most civilized species ignored it or sent polite apologies. Some tried to help and were consumed within days. But in a small corner of the Milky Way, on a blue world that had been avoided by polite galactic society, something stirred. Earth had been waiting for this call for 300 years, and Earth had never learned to fight fair. No. Stood in the war room deep beneath Sol, staring at the holographic display that showed the galaxy burning. Red dots marked where entire civilizations had been eaten alive by the Devourers. The alien distress signal had reached Earth 3 days ago, and since then, every military base on the planet had been buzzing with activity. Sir, the hegemonies. Casualties are now at 23 billion and climbing, reported Colonel Minji, her fingers dancing across the tactical display. Their latest fleet engagement lasted for minutes before total destruction. Daehyun shook his head. For minutes. The aliens had spent centuries building that fleet, and it died in less time than it took to make coffee. Tactics. That's the problem, sir. They don't have battle tactics. They have engagement protocols. Not. Minji pulled up a recording of the aliens' last fight. Watch this. The hegemony ships approach in perfect formation. Broadcast a surrender demand. Wait for a response, then fire warning shots. Warning shots? Sergeant Taejon laughed from across the room. They're fighting for their lives, and they fire warning shots. Gets better, Minji continued. When the Devourers don't respond to the warnings, the hegemony ships target non-critical. Systems to disable rather than destroy. They're trying to capture enemies that want to eat them. Daehyun felt a familiar anger building in his chest. It was the same feeling he got when he watched politicians try to negotiate with terrorists. Some problems could not be solved with words and good intentions. What do we know about these Devourers? He asked. Captain Sujin entered the room carrying a thick folder. Everything we could learn from the alien transmissions, sir. They're a hive mind species. No individual consciousness, no leaders to negotiate with. They consume organic and inorganic matter to fuel their reproduction. They see all other life as food sources. Can they be reasoned with? No, sir. They're essentially a biological weapon that evolved naturally. They don't communicate except to coordinate attacks. They don't take prisoners. They don't retreat. They just eat everything until there's nothing left, then move on to the next target. Daehyun nodded. Finally, an enemy that made sense. No politics, no hidden agendas, no complex motivations. Just a simple problem with a simple solution. What's our current military status? He asked. Every branch is mobilized, Sujin replied. The Navy has pulled every ship out of mothballs. The Air Force is retrofitting civilian spacecraft with weapon systems. The Army is converting transport vessels into troop carriers. We've got volunteers lining up around the block. Volunteers for what? Everything, sir. Suicide missions, boarding actions, piloting ships loaded with nuclear weapons into enemy formations. When word got out that we were going to fight the things that were eating aliens, people started volunteering faster than we could process them. Daehyun smiled grimly. That was humanity for you. Show them an impossible fight against a terrifying enemy, and they would form a line to get involved. What about equipment? Lieutenant So Young looked up from her computer terminal. We've been pulling things out of storage that haven't been used in decades. Nuclear weapons, kinetic bombardment systems, biological warfare agents. The stuff that was banned by every civilized treaty in the galaxy and the retrofit program. Ahead of schedule, sir. We've mounted fusion warheads on gravity drives so they can't be intercepted. We've disguised weapons platforms as mining ships and cargo haulers. We've got enough antimatter to crack a moon if we need to. Daehyun walked over to the main display and studied the star charts. The Devourers were moving in a predictable pattern, consuming everything in their path. They had grown comfortable fighting enemies who played by rules. Sir, we've got a problem, Captain Sujin said quietly. The hegemony is asking us to follow their rules of engagement. No weapons of mass destruction, minimal collateral damage, evacuation warnings before attacks. What did you tell them? We'd consider their suggestions. Daehyun laughed. Good, let them think we're going to play nice until we get there. The room fell silent as everyone understood what he was saying. They were not going to fight a civilized war. They were going to fight a human war. Sir, the first wave is ready to launch, reported Major Yuna. Captain Woojin's squadron is loaded with volunteers and nuclear payloads. They're requesting permission to engage. Daehyun looked at the tactical display one more time. Devourers had never fought an enemy that didn't care about honor or rules or minimizing casualties. They had never fought an enemy that would sacrifice everything to win. Tell Captain Woojin he's cleared for launch, and make sure he knows the mission parameters. Which are, sir, find the enemy, kill the enemy. Don't come home until they're all dead. As the first human warships began their burn toward Devourer space, their crews singing old war songs over the communication channels the galaxy was about, to learn what happened when you cornered the one species that had never learned to fight fair. The age of civilized warfare was about to end. Admiral J1 watched the tactical display with growing excitement as the first human ships approached the Kepler colony. The alien outpost had been sending distress signals for 6 hours, begging for help as Devourer bioships circled like sharks around wounded prey. Contact in 30 seconds, reported Lieutenant Soyoung from the communication station. Captain Woojin's squadron is moving into attack position. The hegemony observers aboard the human flagship had been silent. For the past hour, their elegant faces showing confusion and horror at humanity's approach to warfare. Admiral Kethron, the highest-ranking alien on the ship, kept staring at the weapons readouts like he was seeing a nightmare. Admiral J1 Kethron said quietly, "Your ships are targeting civilian areas. The Devourer bioships are near the colony's main population center." "I know," J1 replied without taking his eyes off the display. "But the collateral damage, there are still 3 million civilians down there," were J1 corrected. Devourers ate most of them yesterday. "The survivors are in the underground shelters." Kethron's blue skin turned pale. "You're going to attack anyway?" "Out. Without a full evacuation?" "Captain Woojin has calculated the acceptable risk parameters. We can save maybe 50,000 people if we attack now, or we can lose everyone if we wait for a perfect solution." The alien admiral opened his mouth to protest, but Captain Sujin's voice cut through the bridge chatter. First contact initiated. Captain Woojin is engaging the enemy. The main screen showed the human squadron diving toward the massive Devourer bioships like angry wasps. The enemy vessels were enormous, each one the size of a small moon, their organic hulls pulsing with veins of green energy. They had swept aside the hegemony's finest warships without breaking formation. Human ships are not broadcasting surrender. "Demands," Soyoung reported. "They're not requesting communication. They're just ... attacking." Jaewon smiled. "That's because we're not here to talk." The first human missiles struck the lead bioship, and the alien observers gasped. Instead of the precise, minimal damage strikes they were used to, the humans had loaded their weapons with fusion warheads designed to cause maximum destruction. "A direct hit on the primary feeding appendage," reported the weapons officer. "Bioship is losing structural integrity. Enemy vessels are trying to retreat," Soyoung added. "But Captain Woojin's ships are pursuing." Admiral Kethron looked shocked. "They're running away." "The Devourers never retreat. They've never fought humans before," Jaewon explained. "They're used to enemies who fight to disable, not to kill. They're used to enemies who value their own lives." The tactical display showed the human ships closing distance with the fleeing Devourers. Captain Woojin's flagship was badly damaged, leaking atmosphere and losing power, but it kept moving toward the largest bioship. "Sir, Captain Woojin is requesting permission for ramming speed," Soyoung reported. "Granted," Jaewon said immediately. Kethron stood up so fast his chair fell over. "You're authorizing a suicide attack? Captain Woojin has 300 crew members, who all volunteered for this mission knowing exactly what it meant," Jaewon replied. "They're not doing this because they have to. They're doing it because they want to." The human flagship accelerated toward the bioship, its engines glowing white-hot as the crew pushed them past safe limits. Over the communication channel, they could hear Captain Woojin's crew singing an old Korean war song, their voices calm and determined. "Fusion warheads armed," came Woojin's voice. "Impact in 10 seconds. It's been an honor serving with you all." The collision lit up the darkness of space like a new star. The bioship, which had survived attacks from entire hegemony fleets, cracked apart like an egg. Pieces of organic hulls scattered in all directions, and the green energy that had powered it faded to nothing. "Target destroyed," So Young announced unnecessarily. Everyone on the bridge had seen it. The remaining Devourer ships stopped retreating and turned back toward the human squadron. But instead of the easy prey they expected, they found ships that fought like cornered animals. Every human vessel that was too damaged to continue fighting rammed the enemy at full speed. Every weapon system that failed was replaced with improvised bombs. Every crew member who survived their ship's destruction kept fighting with whatever they could find. "Sir, the second bioship is breaking apart," reported the tactical officer. Lieutenant Commander Kehoe's destroyer managed to get inside its hull somehow. "How did they get inside?" Catherine asked. "They flew into its mouth while it was trying to eat them," J1 explained. "Then they detonated their reactor from the inside." The alien admiral sat down heavily. "This is not warfare. This is madness," J1 corrected, watching the last Devourer ship limp away from the battle zone. "This is what warfare looks like when you're fighting for survival instead of political points." The Kepler colony was saved. 47,000 civilians were pulled from the underground shelters, alive and grateful. The human squadron was gone, but their sacrifice had proven something important to the watching galaxy. The Devourers could be killed. Humans were very, very good at killing. Fleet Admiral Yoon Jae stood in the command center of the massive space station orbiting Mars, watching dozens of screens showing battles across the galaxy. 6 months had passed since the first human contact with the Devourers, and everything had changed. The aliens who had once dismissed humanity as too primitive now hung on every word from Earth's military commanders. "Admiral, the vegan survivors are requesting another weapons shipment," reported Commander Bongsu, his voice tired. "From weeks of constant operations, they've burned through their third supply of nuclear torpedoes." "Send them another batch," Yoonji replied, "and make sure they understand the new targeting protocols. Shoot to kill, not to disable." Around the conference table sat representatives from a dozen species, all of whom had learned to fight the human. Weyer had watched their civilizations die trying to be civilized. The elegant hegemony uniforms had been replaced with practical military gear. The polite diplomatic language had been replaced with direct orders and casualty reports. "The Devourer retreat from the Outer Rim is confirmed," announced Captain Hae-young. Pointing to the tactical display, they've abandoned 17 systems in the past month. This is the first time in their species' history that they've given up territory. Ambassador Velketh, one of the few surviving hegemony officials, shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Admiral Yoonji, the scale of destruction we're seeing, it's unprecedented. Entire star systems are being sterilized. The environmental damage will take centuries to repair." "Better than letting the Devourers eat everything," Yoonji replied without emotion. "Dead planets can be fixed. Eaten planets can't." Major Yuna activated a holographic display showing the newest addition to the human fleet. The civilian conversion program is ahead of schedule. We've retrofitted every cargo hauler, mining platform, and research vessel in human space. Even the passenger liners are carrying weapons now. The display showed images that would have horrified the old hegemony leadership. Luxury cruise ships with missile launchers welded to their hulls, cargo freighters packed with nuclear bombs instead of trade goods, mining vessels equipped with kinetic bombardment systems that could crack planets. "Are you insane?" Ambassador Velketh asked, his voice shaking. "You're turning every civilian into a soldier. You're militarizing your entire society." "We're doing what we need to do to survive," Yoonji answered. "The Devourers don't care if you're a soldier or a civilian. They just see food, so everyone learns to fight." Lieutenant Soyoung looked up from her communications console. "Admiral, we're getting requests from 47 different species asking for human military advisors. They want to learn our tactics." "Send them the training manuals," Yoonji ordered. "All of them." Basic infantry combat, naval warfare, nuclear strategy, everything. Make sure they understand the most important lesson, which is, there's no such thing as a fair fight. There's only winning and losing. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this. The hegemony had spent thousands of years building a civilization based on honor, diplomacy, and minimal violence. The humans had torn down those concepts in less than a year and replaced them with something far more effective. Incoming. Report from the Centauri front, Commander Bongsu announced. General Taechon's forces have successfully eliminated the Devourer breeding colony. No survivors? No survivors on which side? Svelkath asked nervously. On the Devourer side, Bongsu clarified. General Taechon's casualties were minimal. The Devourers couldn't adapt to his tactics fast enough. Yunji smiled grimly. Tactics? Did he use? The general reports that he told the Devourers he was retreating, then led them into a trap. When they followed his ships into the asteroid belt, he detonated 1,000 nuclear mines at once. The aliens call it lying to the enemy. The humans call it basic military strategy. Ambassador Velketh looked horrified. You lied to them? That's not how civilized beings conduct warfare. The civilized beings are dead, Youngji reminded him. We're the ones who are still alive. Captain He-young brought up a new display showing the current war situation. The Devourers are changing their behavior patterns. They're avoiding direct confrontation with human forces. They're trying to go around us to attack undefended systems. Then we'll teach every system to defend itself, Youngji decided.
Every
planet gets weapons. Every ship gets training. Every civilian learns to fight. That's going to take years, Major Yuna pointed out. Then we'd better start now. Yunji looked around the table at the alien representatives. The old galaxy is gone. The hegemony's peaceful golden age is over. You can adapt to the new reality, or you can join the civilizations that the Devourers have already eaten. Is the new reality? Ambassador Velketh asked quietly. Like the new reality is that night skies finish extinct, Yunji replied. The new reality is that sometimes the only way to preserve civilization is to be willing to destroy everything that threatens. The new reality is that humans are now the most dangerous species in the galaxy. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the human fleet assembling in Earth orbit. And we're just getting started. Marshal Dongwu stood on the bridge of the massive dreadnought Indomitable, watching the Devourer home cluster burn like a dying star. The final battle had raged for 3 days, and now the ancient enemy that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia was nothing but floating debris and fading energy. All bioships eliminated, reported Captain He-young, her voice hoarse from hours of coordinating the attack. The planetary bombardment is complete. Sensors show no organic matter larger than bacteria remaining in the entire system. Around them, the combined human fleet spread across space like a cloud of metal predators. Thousands of ships, from massive battle cruisers to converted cargo haulers, all bristling with weapons that the civilized galaxy had once considered too brutal to use. The hegemony vessels hung back at a safe distance, their crews watching in stunned silence as humans did what they did best. Sir, we're receiving communication requests from the hegemony observers, Lieutenant Neo Chin announced. They want to discuss the extent of the destruction. Gu didn't take his eyes off the tactical display. Tell them we're busy. They can file their complaints later. The main screen showed the final moments of the Devourer homeworld, a massive organic, a sphere that had pulsed with malevolent life for millions of years. Now it was cracking apart under sustained nuclear bombardment, its surface glowing white-hot as human weapons tore through its crust. Marshal, the alien observers are saying we've gone too far, Captain He-young reported. They're calling this genocide. Good, Dongwu replied. That's exactly what this is. Complete extinction of a species that exists only to consume other life. No survivors, no prisoners, no mercy. The bridge crew nodded grimly. They had all seen the reports from the Devourer feeding grounds. Entire civilizations reduced to organic slurry. Billions of sentient beings processed like livestock. Children eaten alive while their parents watched helplessly. Sir, incoming transmission from Admiral Kethrin, the communications officer announced. He's demanding we stop the bombardment immediately. Put him through, Dongwu ordered. The holographic image of the alien admiral appeared on the main screen, his blue skin flushed with anger and fear. Marshal Dongwu, you must cease this attack immediately. The Devourers are attempting to surrender. They don't get to surrender, Dongwu replied calmly. They never offered that option too. They're victims. But this is massacre. You're destroying an entire species. A species that chose to be our enemy. A species that saw every other form of life as food. Dongwu stepped closer to the hologram. Tell me, Admiral, how many of your people did they eat? Kethrin's expression faltered. 7 billion from my homeworld alone? But that doesn't justify. It justifies everything, Dongwu interrupted. Every nuclear warhead, every kinetic strike, every dead bioship floating in space, they chose to be monsters, so we're treating them like monsters. Lieutenant Seokin looked up from his sensor station. Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures from the outer system. Looks like Devourer reinforcements trying to jump in. How many? Approximately 300 bioships, sir. They're trying to escape to deep space. Dongwu smiled coldly. Not today. Signal all ships. Pursue and destroy. No survivors. The human fleet turned as one, like a pack of wolves sensing wounded prey. The Devourer ships that had once terrorized entire star systems now fled in panic, but there was nowhere to run. Human vessels had been positioned at every jump point, every escape route, every possible avenue of retreat. Sir, they're retreating. Bioships are broadcasting something, the communications officer reported. It's some kind of plea for mercy. First time they've ever tried to talk instead of eat, Captain Haeyoung observed. Too bad we're not interested in conversation. The tactical display showed the human fleet methodically hunting down every fleeing Devourer ship. No dramatic battles, no heroic last stands. Just cold, efficient extermination carried out by people who had learned to kill without hesitation or remorse. Final bioship destroyed, Lieutenant Seo Jin announced. All enemy contacts eliminated. The Devourer species is now extinct. A cheer went up from the human ships, broadcast over every communication channel. After years of brutal warfare, the galaxy's greatest threat had been eliminated forever. But the celebration was short-lived. Marshal, we're receiving surrender offers from 17 different hostile species, the communications officer reported. Word about our victory has spread fast. Everyone wants to negotiate before we come for them. Dongwu nodded grimly. The galaxy had learned its lesson. The species that had been dismissed as too primitive for civilized society had become the most feared military force in known space. Every aggressive empire, every warlike civilization, every potential threat was, now looking over their shoulder and wondering if they were next. Send a message to all of them, Dongwu ordered. Tell them we're not interested in conquest or expansion, just want to be left alone. But if anyone threatens Earth or our allies, they'll get the same treatment as the Devourers. What about the hegemony? Captain Haeyoung asked. They're asking about reconstruction, about returning to the old ways. The old ways are dead, Dongwu replied, watching the last of the Devourer debris burn up in the gravity well of their former homeworld. The galaxy is ours now. We just have to decide what to do with it. The age of polite civilization was over. The age of humanity had begun.